Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from PopCross Studios. It was about Kiko, the Keen Observer, featuring Lilo and Stitch monsters, i.e. Trismegistus Academy, Episode 12, Story and Art. Let's hop in and see which monsters from Lilo and Stitch it's become, well, I guess new kinds of monsters. Can actually already point this out, though. On the thumbnail for this, he had Leroy, which is that hamster guy's job, whatever he was, that rodent guy's, his attempt at making an evil Stitch.
I needed to work in some kind of new cool creatures for this episode of the Trismegistus Academy, and after the last Illustrator Reacts episode where I talked about Troy the Art Boy's awesome Pokemon and Ben 10 aliens adapted into Lilo and Stitch cousins, I was kind of itching to work with Stitch experiments again, like back when I turned them into SCPs a couple years back. I also want to mess around
I actually remember that.
more with exaggeration in my creature designs, like I talked about in that same Illustrator Reacts episode with the creature box artists. So I'm very excited to do some monster experimenting in this episode, and of course present the next episode of the Trismegistus Academy. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go.
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like it. By the way, enjoy the show.
Previously on the Trismegistus Academy, Alcai Lamani has been kicked out of the
It's been a long time since I've actually watched Leo and Stitch, but I actually kind of remember this thing.
Ludum Academy for fearsome fighters after trying to help Tahe Professor Strone Goggins attack Headmistress Ludum while both schools were on a field trip to the same dimension. Alcai has now been taken in by Tahe and has been accepted into the Maverick class. She is still intent on finding her sister, Delilah's killer, but is glad to be out of the LAFF, despite having some guilt around leaving her friends, Waru and Gatos, behind to remain as spies on the inside for the plan to take down Ludum.
That is a bit of a shame.
Alcai and the other Maverick students are all sitting in a meeting where the headmistress of Tahe, Evangeline Trismegistus, just revealed that she was aware the students were likely concocting a scheme to take down Ludum, and she is open to hearing them out on how to go about it as a sort of extra credit assignment for the Mavericks. She also brought in members of the famous superhero team, the Sharp Gang, to be involved in the meeting. Sterling and Geel, Professor Dresden Oakland, and Dresden's new animal companion, Val, who quickly took a liking to Alcai, sitting next to her for the meeting while she pet the creature. Alcai wasn't thrilled to hear
Dresden is right there. Oh boy!
that Evangeline and the Sharp Gang's intention is to capture Ludum and lock her in a place called the Redemption Arc Support Foundation instead of killing her. Alcai intends to play along, but still hopes there is room in the plan for a change that results in Ludum's execution. She has also yet to tell anyone about her hope to find her sister's killer. Evangeline has just opened the floor to the Tahe students to explain what plan they had been cooking up with Alcai and her allies inside the LAFF to take down Ludum and her whole horrible school. Now let's see how what follows plays out from the perspective of a specific Maverick student.
Here we go.
If there was one thing Kiko Tsukino was great at, it was listening. This wasn't just because she had far better hearing than most thanks to her large rabbit ears, granted as part of her ancestral moon rabbit abilities.
That is a bonus.
Kiko was a naturally curious observer of all her surroundings. She wasn't exactly shy, but could come across that way, as she often remained quiet, even around her closest friends in the Maverick class, often only chiming in with questions, so she could learn even more about those around her. As expected with that
A knowledge seeker, my kind of girl.
Kiko remained quiet for the majority of the meeting about how to handle Ludum. When Evangeline Trismegistus asked for an elaboration of the plan, Kiko immediately noticed Jake, as expected, lean forward as if about to leap up out of his seat. Surprisingly, he held himself back and looked uncertainly at Anna. Kiko hadn't been told about it directly, but knew some sort of romantic conversation had happened between Jake and Anna. She could see it on both their faces and hear it in the rapid, excited, and anxious tone they now carried when speaking directly to each other. Anna spoke up and said,
Jake was the...
Yeah, I can probably hear the hearts going... Sorry, I'm not laughing at them, I'm just laughing at how... It's just a little funny. Apparently this cousin that was called Dupe.
The one who got the whole plan in motion. I think he should explain it.
Everyone else either nodded in agreement or at least didn't oppose the idea.
It is
Jake blushed and thanked Anna anxiously, then leapt up. Okay, I'm totally happy to explain, but obviously not that I'd accuse anyone here, but is there any chance the mole could be listening? I mean, if there really is one. Kiko shifted slightly in her seat, curious if this was when everyone would find out her little secret. She wasn't going to say anything, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be revealed all the same.
Kiko, it's you? No, you're the mole? You're walking with Ludum? Oh, I hope that's a lie.
Evangeline smiled softly at the question. We need not worry about those gathered here. I strongly believe Eloise was bluffing about having a mole in our academy. Her knowing about the time and place of our class trip is unusual, but not something we need concern ourselves with. If there was truly a great threat to the school within our ranks, I am confident I or one of our professors would be aware of it. Headmistress Trismegistus was still a bit of an enigma to Kiko. Logically, Evangeline often seemed overconfident and maybe even naively optimistic that nothing could ever really go wrong for her school or her students. At the same time, ignoring her thoughts about the headmistress and just going with her feelings, Kiko felt like Evangeline was nothing but a glowing beacon of wisdom, love, and support. She also had no idea what the extent of Evangeline's abilities was. She knew the headmistress was a sorceress. Kiko recalled the headmistress explaining the term sorceress and sorcerer represented someone who can actively channel the extensive powers of something called source energy. But Kiko felt she had seen far from how much the headmistress could actually do with this ability. She'd never seen the headmistress fight anyone. She didn't exactly come across as the combat type. In a way, the headmistress was right about not needing to be concerned about the mole, but at the same time she was wrong in thinking Ludum was lying about there being one. Jake started explaining the plan, and Kiko sort of tuned in and out. She had helped...
Okay, so Kiko is the mole, but apparently not a good mole?
Develop the plan with the other students, so there was nothing new for her in the explanation, other than Jake doing a surprisingly polished job explaining it. Kiko spent much more of the explanation observing...
Oh, it's standing in water, that's why the feet are cut off like that.
The reactions of those around her, and more specifically, observing Alsaya, who Kiko had made sure to sit right next to. Alsaya was the biggest anomaly of everyone at the meeting. Kiko knew plenty about her fellow Mavericks and the professors. Sterling and Dresden were intriguing to her as well, but she knew a fair deal about them since Jake and Anna had spoken about them on multiple occasions. Alsaya was the only one Kiko knew little about. She didn't know where she was from, what her family was like, or how she reacted to stressful situations, since Kiko hadn't been present for the big battle with the Pokévern. Kiko was incredibly curious to see how someone who just spent months being trained by Eloise Ludum would act, even if Alsaya had spent much of her time in that school wanting to escape it. One thing Kiko had learned at Tahe was how much of an impact the people you keep around you consistently have on how you act, whether you're happy about spending time with them or not. Alsaya spent most of the meeting just petting Dresden's creature companion, Val. There were plenty of little hints of tension, shortening of her breath, and Kiko was even close enough to slightly hone in on when Alsaya's heartbeat really picked up. That happened most on the couple of occasions where Ludum was referred to as the overseer of her universe. Kiko knew there was always room for error when she was trying to read someone's reactions, but she was getting a strong sense that Alsaya had some sort of history with overseers. That meeting lasted another half hour or so. Jake had explained the plan, and all the adults seemed fairly impressed. They added their own alterations, but by the end of the meeting, it had been fairly locked in what they would do to take down Ludum in under 3 months, when the schools came together for a combat tournament in Ludum's dimension. They also all determined in that meeting what to do about the ultimatums Ludum had given for the schools still interacting. After Goggins attacked her, and Niseko used a massive bug creature called a Cell Score, which Niseko referred to as Cindy, to tear off Ludum's arm. Goggins was temporarily fired from the school and sent back to his home dimension, with the full intention to bring him back after Ludum was handled, and have him present during the plan to take her down. He also took a separate meeting with Evangeline before leaving, and laid out the training curriculum he'd had for the students in those next 3 months. From a distance, Kiko had listened in on part of this meeting and could tell how frustrated Goggins was with Trismegistus taking over. He thought she was far too soft on the students to properly teach his class, but she assured him that she'd do her best to teach them.
I mean, she is soft, but come on. I would trust her just this once. Oh wait, 3 months. Never mind.
Exactly as he would. The next condition of Ludum's was that Niseko needed to kill the Cell Score Cindy that she'd bonded with on the field trip and used to attack Ludum. This was harder to fake, but was manageable. Ludum had scouts of hers meet Evangeline and Niseko back in Dimension P138, where the scouts had already found and bound the creature in chains. Niseko hated doing so, but used her paralysis spores on the creature, making it tense up and writhe in pain, looking very much like it was being killed. Niseko was a terrible liar, but because she was actually hurting the creature, she got very emotional herself and cried during the act, making her deception believable. Evangeline then used her own sorcery
Damn, that's good, but damn.
skills to slow the creature's bodily functions to become imperceptible, making it appear dead. Then she forced the creature to do something called astral projecting, where the consciousness leaves the body, ensuring it would not attempt to move and betray the ruse. The scouts then insisted on burning the body, but Evangeline subtly snuffed out their flames with her magic and cast an illusion to look and feel as though there was a blazing inferno scorching the creature before them all. That was satisfactory enough for the scouts. Evangeline returned to the site later, unchained the creature, and replaced its body with the corpse of an already deceased creature of similar type and size, then burned that body to ensure if the scouts returned for their chains, they'd still find a charred corpse. Evangeline even then brought the live creature into Tahei's dimension and found a place far from the school where it could live peacefully, and Niseko could visit it in her spare time.
Peaceful.
The last and most unusual condition of Ludum's had already been met. Alsaya was accepted into the Maverick class and would be one of the students brought to face off in the combat tournament.
Oh yeah.
Many assumed this was because Ludum intended some kind of drastic punishment for Alsaya during the tournament, but Kiko had no idea what that could be.
Definitely something psychological.
Knowing Ludum, it had to be something bigger and more personal than just having a student kill Alsaya in the tournament. Like much of her time observing others, Kiko saw it as almost like a game to learn more about Alsaya that could help her figure out some theories about what Ludum was up to, and she got plenty of opportunities to learn more over the coming weeks. However, eventually she realized that she may have to do more than simply observe.
You know, just asking real quick to anyone else out there that has seen Lilo and Stitch, the TV series, and remembers a lot of the cousins, was Dupe named that because he has the ability to duplicate something?
Observe to learn what she was after.
Items, I mean?
This revelation came on the day 2 women were brought to the school from Dimension D191, along with some of the creatures from their mutant ranch.
And this is how we get the cousins involved. Alright, well that's Dupe. Next up.
You know, I may not be the canonical version of Dr. Champagne McGregor, but what I am is a guy who likes having plenty of helpful ways to relax and unwind, and not think about whatever insane thing me partner Benny is up to in a given week. One thing I like to do is colour in a colouring book. Like,
Question, what do you mean by partner? Do you just mean partner as in helper in crime and all that? Or something else? Because I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with everything.
this one right here. I've come around on thinking dinosaurs is pretty cool now that I ain't worked with them in a long time, and dragons is basically cooler versions of dinosaurs.
That is
and there's
true.
50 of them in this book. Colouring is a good way to relax and unwind, chill out the brain, and the PopCross Studios Dragons colouring book is the perfect one for you to buy, since if you've watched this far into the video, you clearly like the sorts of designs that Canadian Clown makes. Buy it or don't, it's all the same to me. It's linked in the description. Now,
I didn't know he was Canadian.
I'm gonna get back to colouring myself. To not think about how Benny is currently working on a retractable laser sword that can hide inside a convincingly fake half-eaten hot dog.
The Mavericks were gathered at
I'm sorry, what did he just say? Okay. And this cousin is called Sprout.
half-hour
Okay, that
run
makes
from the
sense.
main school grounds.
It's a plan.
That had been their warm-up for the Resilience Combat class that day, and was meant to get them a safe distance from the buildings and other students, so the school couldn't be threatened by the challengers about to be brought in. They all stopped just outside a small shallow pond, surrounded by rolling grassy hills. When the class was settling, Evangeline summoned into her hand a 2-foot-tall hovering pyramid that looked like a very small version of the Nexus Pyramid. That was a tall, broad structure made from luminous white bricks, and was the point through which most people had to enter the dimension. Evangeline raised this smaller version to
I was thinking of something else.
float over the pond, and spoke a series of bizarre words that Kiko wasn't sure she could repeat, even if she had them written down before her. The hovering pyramid spun rapidly, and light soon shone from beneath it. Water swirled up below. 2 figures suddenly appeared, standing ankle-deep in the water. Both had tan skin and long black hair. One bore an eager expression and was shorter, looking to be in her early 20s. The taller one was
Lilo.
likely closer to her late 30s and bore a less giddy look than her shorter companion. As they marched towards the class on the shore, Evangeline said, "Students, this is Lelia and Nanara Paloha. In their dimension, they have a ranch on which they grant tasks and purpose to hundreds of mutated experiments that very well could have ravaged their world if not given suitable tasks to occupy their minds and abilities. We are currently scouting them as potential assets for the Redemption Arc Support Foundation. Dresden will be coming to meet with them later, but first, we thought they could assist us with an important class Professor Goggins had lined up for you all." Kiko immediately saw Alcaya perk up when Dresden was mentioned. Whenever he came around, he brought Val with him and allowed Alcaya to spend time with the creature. Kiko was pretty sure the headmistress had requested as much.
Oh, you know what? This kind of actually reminds me. Back when we first started watching this series, it's, Trismegistus, I talked with someone in the comments about a theory I had of what will happen between Dresden and the main girl. I can't remember her name. My brain is funky like that. And about how she would, in a way, become his assistant, his helper, his right hand, if you will. And then, eventually, he would reveal his past, and that he was the man that killed her sister. Of course, she'd be mad. She wanted to take revenge on him, attack him, all that. He wouldn't fight back. He would just let her. Then eventually, she would crumble into him into a hug, just very lightly hitting his chest, just still angry, but now sad. Of course, Dresden is already reaching near the end of his lifespan, and surprisingly, and he would need someone to take over the RAS Foundation, the watch over Val, and to take his position as overseer. She would be, in a way, his successor, his daughter. Oop, wrong button.
After seeing how Alcaya and Val had gotten along when they first met. The sisters helped Evangeline introduce the assignment. Each student was going to face off against a randomly selected creature from the ranch, which would be brought to the dimension using Evangeline's portable Nexus Pyramid. The creature would be directed to attack Evangeline, and the student would have to find a way to protect her, restrain the creature, and do so without harming it. They would get a one-sentence description of the creature they were facing, and that was it, so it was both a physical challenge and a problem-solving endeavor. While the assignment was being laid out, Kiko noticed something interesting about Alcaya. She had been in a good mood for most of the day, but slowly over the assignment being given, her expression had sunk. Kiko suspected it had something to do with the two sisters. It had been 3 weeks since Alcaya had started at Tahe, and she was...
It's already been 3 weeks! Good lord, we only have 3 months! And we're just skipping!
Getting along with the class fairly well. Kiko had even hung out with her in smaller groups a couple times, and had brief conversations with her. Alcaya was clearly more inherently aggressive and defensive than the rest of her class, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been for a kid who'd essentially been under threat of death for months on end at her last school.
Yep, fair
Still,
point.
Kiko knew Alcaya was hiding something. She didn't think it was anything sinister. She was pretty sure it was something about Alcaya's past and her family. She first noticed it in a conversation in which Jake was talking about his dead brother Mason. Anna then shared about her own family struggles, having lost her father when she was young, and about how her mother hadn't had much interest in being a mother and let it show in how she acted. Others started sharing family stories, and Alcaya grew quieter and more distant, until she eventually gave a flimsy excuse and left the conversation. Another odd observation was that she got very tense once at the campfire, where upper year student, Parvel Markopoulos, told the final chapter of a legendary tale from his world about a couple of heroes named
Ft.Lilo
and Ordis. To most people's surprise and excitement, one of the key players from that tale appeared at that very campfire when the story concluded. It was Ares, the Greek god of war in Parvel's dimension, who Markopoulos apparently descended from. While Alcaya did a decent job hiding her anxiety from others, Kiko saw how tense she got upon this being's arrival, though she never learned why. Ares had only partially come to Tahe that night to visit his descendant and answer a few questions for the curious students about Mythil and Ordis. Mainly, he was there for a meeting with Evangeline Trismegistus, who was encouraging Ares to consider working with the RAS Foundation. They must have worked something out, as Kiko saw Dresden and Ares touring around the Academy school grounds together about a week later. As had become customary,
nice.
Dresden brought Val for Alcaya to spend time with. Dresden was a bit awkward talking to kids, so he and Alcaya didn't converse much themselves, but Alcaya always expressed her gratitude for him bringing Val to the school. On top of these observations, as previously observed, anytime overseers were mentioned, Alcaya visibly tensed up and got quiet. She figured Alcaya had a problem with overseers, like many people did. Kiko was curious to know if anyone had told Alcaya yet about Dresden's unfortunate history with them. Maybe it was something, other than Val, that the two of them could bond over. While the sisters shared more...
Yeah, if you go ahead and spill that now, you will be just toppling over everything we thought of.
About the assignment, Kiko started feeling bad for Alcaya. While it was likely not noticeable to others in the class, Kiko could practically feel sadness spilling off her. Did Alcaya have a sister? An older one? A younger one? Had something happened to her? And if so, why was she so unwilling to talk about it? Alcaya's sadness seemed to fade slightly as Evangeline summoned one of the sisters' creatures into the pond as an example of the kinds of mutants they had at the ranch. The one they called in was about 18 feet tall and had orange fur. It stood on its hind legs and, from atop its head, sprouted a tail-like appendage with a four-pronged claw at the end that almost seemed to have an extra mouth on it. The creature looked aggressive, but followed instructions from the sisters to use its abilities. It hovered its tail over Lelia, and a duplicate of the girl split off from her. It was an incredible sight and seemed to be interesting enough, even to Alcaya to pull her further out of her funk. Kiko was glad to see it, but was still curious about what was up with her. Kiko was pretty sure she'd been subtle about the fact that she wasn't paying full attention, but regardless, the headmistress said, "Kiko, would you like to take the first challenge?" Kiko agreed. The creature erased the duplicate of Lelia, then the headmistress returned it to its home dimension and prepared to call in another. Kiko was a little disappointed that Goggins wasn't there to see her improving. In the first Resilience combat class, she and Niseko had been the only two to not beat their gleams and cross the finish line. Kiko prided herself on being incredibly nimble and agile, and felt she definitely should have been able to get past her opponent. Since that class, she'd been pushing herself to get both faster and stronger. Kiko's gifts weren't as...
Since you are kind of a moon rabbit, I would focus a lot on your legs, strengthening them to increase both your jump, your run, and your kicks.
Flashy as some of the other kids in her class, at least not unless a full moon was out. The eldest daughter of each generation in her family always gained enhanced speed, strength, stamina, and senses thanks to an ancestor of hers. This ancestor had given some of her homemade cake to a starving rabbit she found on the side of the road, despite having very little food herself. The grateful animal turned out to be an ancient being called a moon rabbit, which bestowed the blessing of bountiful crops and superhuman abilities to the Tsukino family. Her powers would be even more elevated during a full moon, but Resilience combat classes generally happened in the daytime, so she rarely got to use this advantage. Still, she was glad not to have the advantage, as it meant she could push herself even more. Even if he wasn't there to watch, Kiko thought Goggins would be proud of how much she'd improved.
Of course.
And of the fact that she continued
Though you are a mole.
To keep their shared secret. Kiko stepped forward and took a digital tablet being held out by Lelia. There was an image on it that looked like a large folder, and it said, Mutant Ranch Registry. Kiko was instructed to swipe her finger across the screen, and she did so. It instantly started flipping through multiple different creature images. They had been serious.
That's how it randomly picks. Okay, that's clever.
It's about there being hundreds of these things. The flipping through images slowed to a stop on a creature that Kiko was almost worried
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's over 600 of these things. I mean, it literally ends with experiment 626. Normally, but then, of course, you have Leroy, and that's experiment 627.
Wouldn't be enough of a challenge for her. It was a plant creature with a big purple head. Its file name referred to it as the Sprouting Floros. The one-sentence description she got was, the sprouting Floros will plant itself in the ground, then grow and grow until it becomes unstoppable. Kiko was given a moment to think and strategize while the headmistress called in the monster. When it first appeared in the water, it was only around 6 feet tall. Kiko didn't know how fast it was going to grow, but she figured her best shot at restraining it was to do so quickly. Evangeline walked over to a hill roughly 30 feet away and simply put her arms behind her back, waiting and observing. You may begin.
Countdown, 3, 2, one start. And next up,
The creature was given its order to
Leroy.
attack and used its vines to sloppily scramble towards the land.
yeah, like I said, Leroy, Experiment 627, created by that hamster gerbil guy, and literally just to be a pure evil Stitch. That's why it looks exactly like him, but red.
The rest of the class backed away as it got to shore, and instantly it started digging its roots into the ground. Kiko sprang over to it. It sprouted tendrils that whipped towards her, but she dove under one, then grabbed and flung herself off another to get even closer. She leapt right over the creature to get behind it, then thrust her hands under it and tried to yank it up out of the ground. It hardly moved an inch, and its roots kept burrowing deeper down, just making it even more stuck. The creature spun around and snapped its jaws at her. She caught its mouth and clamped it shut, then wrestled it under her arm. It tried to pull away from her, but she dug her feet into the ground and held it. Vines whipped at her, and she did her best to block them, but she knew this wasn't a real strategy for restraining it long term.
Oh, not
She
even.
could feel its head growing under her arm. Worse still, she noticed that the grass and dirt heading in the direction of the headmistress was shifting. There were roots crawling through the ground towards her. As the creature tried to lurch its head up into the air, Kiko used that to her advantage. She leapt up with it, then pushed away from the creature, getting to the ground between the roots and the headmistress. She rapidly dug into the dirt and managed to snatch the roots, pulling them up. As soon as she did, she saw that there was a purple bulb at the end. It looked suspiciously like the creature's head. Kiko processed that in time to be ready for the bulb to transform into a mini version of the creature's head and lunge forward to bite her face. She ducked aside and, still holding the root, ran back towards the main body of the mutant.
You gotta
she
wrap
tore
it
the
up.
root up out of the ground as she moved, but then saw the dirt on either side of her billowing up. More heads were digging towards Evangeline.
Oh boy.
Holding the root in one hand, she dug into the ground and
Damn, that thing actually can grow kind of fast.
grabbed another, yanking it up before it got too far. Now, two smaller heads were snapping at her. She wasn't able to dodge both while holding them, and one chomped into her shoulder.
Ow,
It didn't puncture her
damn.
skin, but it still hurt a lot. She let go of that part of the root, then grabbed right onto the head biting her, yanking it off her shoulder. When the other head came snapping, she held the head in her hand between her and it, making the two collide. They both hissed angrily. After she did that, the root that was still digging its way towards Evangeline sprung up out of the ground and turned back to her, hissing itself. That was a good sign. None of the heads liked when one of them was hit. She wasn't allowed to do serious harm to the creature, but she could still bat it around a little. She swung her head back, then bashed it onto the head she was holding. The one up ahead stopped moving for Trismegistus entirely and darted back towards her. It may not have been a way to restrain it, but at least it was a way to keep it away from the headmistress.
Yes, that is
Kiko let
good.
go of one of the vines, but kept holding the same head, running it back towards the main body, giving it a few more smacks. The others started chasing her, and even more lurched up out of the ground. That was when Kiko noticed just how much bigger the main body had already gotten. It was at least 16 feet tall now, and its head was almost the size of her whole body already. She could feel the resistance in the vine she was carrying getting stronger and stronger. Soon it'd be able to rip free from her hands. The big head hissed and shot down towards her, with its maw spread wide enough to swallow her whole. Doing a quick calculation in her head of how much she'd need to over-jump with the resistance of the vine she held, Kiko sprang up off the ground, trying to get just over the creature's head. She managed to do just that, landing on its head and smacking the smaller head in her hand down onto it. That made all the heads hiss angrily and move up towards her. She dove down onto its other side, still pulling the vine. Part of it got caught on top of the main head, so her rope tightened. Holding on, she used it to swing around the creature. She tucked her legs up to avoid being snatched by one of the other small heads springing towards her, and ducked under another. One got between her vine and the creature's body, and as she swung, and her vine wrapped around the mutant, that head got pinned up against it, tying it down. And so, a new strategy revealed itself. Kiko did a full
Oh, wait, that literally wasn't a false idea to just wrap it up?
swing around the creature, then jammed the head she held between parts of its own vine and the creature's body, essentially tying it in a knot around the plant beast. She smacked that head one more time, irritating the others, before starting to spring and bound and weave over and around all the coming sprouts. Kiko was struck and bitten many times, but just kept moving. She kept one eye on the ground in the direction of the headmistress. Anytime she saw it move even a little, she'd smack another head, directing its attention back at her. After 15 minutes, Kiko was able to leap away from the creature and observe her work. It was completely bound and tied up in its own vines. She'd even gotten one wrapped all the way around its main mouth, tying it shut. It was now
That
so
was a
focused on
struggle.
trying to detangle itself that it was no longer sprouting new heads to go after Evangeline. Kiko was ready to keep going if she needed to, but the headmistress called it there. Well done, Kiko. Kiko gave
That's
a
a
slight
win.
bow. The creature was sent back to its home, but the students were all assured that one of the mutant ranch handlers, Ms. Pleekman, would be able to get the creature.
Miss Pleekman. It's Pleekly. Actually, now I'm wondering, what does Pleekly look like in that dimension? And you said Miss, so that clearly means it is going to be feminine, unlike the actual Pleekly, who was definitely masculine. Even though he was very flamboyant.
Creature unbound. A few more students had their turns, and some were more successful than others, but all fared well given the challenge of facing a random creature with little information. When it came to Alsaya's turn, she approached Ft.Lilo with little hesitation. She didn't look sad anymore, but also not particularly excited. She swiped her finger along the tablet, and when it stopped, while Kiko couldn't see the screen, she could tell Nanara was not happy about the result. Go again, she stated bluntly.
Yeah.
That
Roll
one's too
again.
dangerous. Ft.Lilo protested. I think he should be fine. We can always sing the song to calm him down if he gets too crazy. Nanara replied.
Does that walk? It's been a while since I've actually seen that movie, so I don't remember that walks. Only thing I do remember is that Leroy got jumped by all 626 experiments. Even 625, and that guy just likes making sandwiches!
The others know not to go for a killing blow. Red doesn't. I'm not risking us having a dead kid on our hands, Ft.Lilo. Don't talk to me like a child, Nanara. I know these creatures better than you do. Please don't fight, Alsaya muttered, interrupting them. They both turned to her. Sisters shouldn't... Anyway, I mean, if this thing's a challenge, I can handle it. At my last school, we fought stuff that could kill us basically every day.
Yeah, that's
Nanara
true.
looked to Evangeline for a response.
Yeah.
The headmistress nodded. If
right,
Alsaya desires the
fine.
challenge, she can have it. Professor Goggins would certainly
At
allow
least
her
Red.
the opportunity, so I should as well, though I will be prepared to act should the creature take things too far. Nanara was still hesitant, but nodded. The creature was just referred to as the Red Rascal in the document. Its single sentence
Red Rascal. I like that.
description read, It's strong, fast, smart, vicious, and can transform. Expect anything. The mini pyramid was activated, and swirling up into the water was a crimson creature that, at first, didn't look any more menacing than any other beast they'd seen. It was about 12 feet tall and just looked like some sort
okay.
of red
Not
koala
that
dog
tall.
thing. Unfortunately, the second it noticed itself standing in water, it started grunting and growling. It leapt out towards shore and made
Oh
it...
yeah, Stitz is so dense he literally cannot swim, and Leroy is just a copy of that, so he can't swim. Meaning they both frickin' hate the
in a
damn
single
water.
bound. It was given the order to go after Evangeline and just snorted at Ft.Lilo. It looked towards the headmistress perched once more on her hilltop. It didn't go for her. It just grunted and flopped down into a seated position, crossing its arms like a giant toddler. Nanara rolled her eyes. Well, there you go. He's not going to listen to us anyway. Let's just send him home. Give him a minute.
good.
He's just a little stubborn, Ft.Lilo retorted. A little? Nanara
A
replied.
little.
He's stubbornness incarnate. He's even worse than Blue, not to mention his anger and deviousness and... Kiko was watching Alsaya and could tell she was once again getting uncomfortable seeing the two sisters fight. Kiko just didn't realize how badly Alsaya wanted it to stop. You gonna give me a challenge or not? Alsaya snorted at the creature. She walked up to it and kicked it in the shin. Nanara and Ft.Lilo both froze. The creature whipped its head towards Alsaya and bared its massive teeth.
Oketaka Fibugu.
It
Ooh.
growled. It stood up, looming over Alsaya. Its body shook as it sprouted 2 extra arms, spiked antennas burst out of its head, and its teeth grew even larger. It thrashed its head and sprayed saliva everywhere. Alsaya tapped her foot 3 times on the ground, and her body started buzzing. The creature swung 2 claws right at her head, and she darted back out of their path. The creature lunged forward, swinging its next 2 claws. Again, Alsaya darted back, dodging.
Oh,
The creature
boy.
grunted out nonsense and sprang towards her, mouth first. She sprinted around it, and its teeth missed her, then drove straight into the ground, biting up a massive clump of dirt. It slowly turned to her, holding the dirt in its mouth, growling. Alsaya smirked.
Come on,
I thought they said
Alsaya.
you were tough. It suddenly spat the dirt right at her. She tried to react in time, but was hit in the face and had to wipe her eyes. Before she could, the creature swung the back of its hand at her and smacked her torso, sending her flipping through the air and crashing into a mound of grass.
Can't
Kiko
do
was
this.
worried, even if she knew Alcya wouldn't back down after a hit like that. "You've got this, Alcya! Come on!" Kiko yelled,
Yeah,
going
keep it
against
up.
her usual quiet instincts. The whole class was clearly surprised to hear a loud outburst like that from her. Still, they all joined her, cheering Alcya on.
Yeah,
Alcya
come
picked
on.
herself up quickly, looking ever so slightly heartwarmed by the cheers from her class. Alcya ran
Alcya.
towards the creature at
Alcya.
elevated speed, but much slower than they all knew she could move. The rascal bounded towards her on all 6 limbs. It leapt up, arcing perfectly to pounce on her. That is, if she didn't speed up. The second it left the
Ooh.
ground, she tripled her speed and got right under the creature, punching up into its stomach, then moving right along to its other side, skidding to a stop, spraying up dirt as she did. The creature clearly
Yes.
hadn't been hurt much by the strike, but was very obviously annoyed. It landed and whipped around, mumbling more angry nonsense. "I hope you don't think you're going to outmaneuver me. However fast you think you are, I'm faster." The creature got even more annoyed and started tearing towards her again. Alcya sprinted away, weaving through the grass.
Damn, you know what? I wish we could actually understand what Stitz, his cousins, and Red all saying.
Grassy hills. She was moving slowly enough for the creature to follow her, but she had to keep speeding up more and more as the creature showed that it had been holding back too. Soon, Alcya was moving
boy.
faster than her comfortable top speed. Tripping at that pace could be bad. Still, she showed no signs of losing her balance. Kiko was intently watching, but also listened in as Laylia said, "See, the Tahe kids can handle Red." Nanara smirked. Yeah, but he's not exactly following the assignment. She'd probably
Oh, yeah.
fail if he actually attacked the headmistress. Despite speaking
Probably.
quietly and being pretty far away, the second those words were spoken, the rascal halted its chase, tearing up a mountain of dirt as it stopped. It whipped its head towards the headmistress and growled.
Oh.
It stopped chasing Alcya and ran right towards Evangeline. She remained poised and waiting. Alcya quickly noticed and changed her own trajectory. She had a clear run towards the headmistress, so
Oh,
she
here we
sped
go.
up even more, moving fast enough to reach Evangeline first. When she caught up to the rascal, it sprang sideways towards her, lunging all 4 front paws to snatch her. She managed to leap forward, making her body like a pencil, and dive between all of them. She landed in a
Ooh.
roll and sprang up to her feet, continuing to run. The whole class
Okay.
erupted in cheers as Alcya skidded to a stop next to the headmistress. She looked at the creature, who was already recovering. Kiko had an idea of what she'd do, but knew she couldn't give Alcya any ideas. She just had to help Alcya
that
notice
is a
the
little
same
bit of
thing
a
she
shame.
had earlier. With the rascal coming at them again, Alcya turned to Evangeline. Headmistress, am I allowed to move you in this test?" She grinned
Can I
pleasantly.
move you?
"You may." Alcya scooped
Perfect.
up the headmistress and ran, with the creature quickly on their tail. Alcya was obviously slowed down with the extra weight, but not
That
as
is
much
a
as
shame.
Kiko would have expected. Alcya said, "Wow, I don't know if this is weird to say, but you're really light for someone so tall." She chuckled. "Hollow bones, my dear."
She is a
The
bug.
creature was gaining on them, and was likely to catch up and smack them both with its claw soon. Thankfully, Alcya was headed right for the pond. "I'll do my best to keep you dry, headmistress." Just as a claw was swiping
No
behind
problem.
them, Alcya leapt as far as
I meant to say no promises. I didn't mean to say no problem.
she could, making it almost directly into the center of the pond. Unfortunately, her feet gave out under her as she hit the water, and she flopped forward, splashing Evangeline right into it.
Oh, damn it.
Alcya sprang up quickly. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, headmistress. I'll dry you off. I'll get it." But Evangeline just chuckled warmly
It's
as
just
she stood up in the
water.
pond. "I am not made of sugar, Alcya. A little water is nothing but pleasant to me." Kiko knew Alcya's reaction was as if she dropped a ludum in a pool of water. If that had been the case, that act could have been a death sentence.
Oh,
Evangeline
10,000%.
"Besides, it seems your strategy has quite effectively kept me safe." She gestured towards the creature. Alcya turned to see that the rascal was hissing and pacing at the water's edge,
Yeah.
but was not willing to come in closer.
He hates the
It had
water.
clearly disliked the water when it first arrived. Like Kiko would have done herself, Alcya banked on it being unwilling to get back in, even to pursue a target. Alcya then got out and tried to restrain the creature, but had little luck.
How would you
Mostly,
actually
she
do
just
that?
ended up testing her stamina, outrunning it, dodging its attacks, and generally annoying the heck out of the thing. Eventually, it just got so
Good
fed
luck.
up that it marched back over to Laylia and Nanara and flopped down beside them, crossing its arms again.
It gave
It wasn't
up.
exactly restraining the creature, but they counted it as a win, and everyone cheered her victory. Kiko was happy for Alcya.
That is actually really nice. It's just like, I'm done with you. Walks over and just sits down like a toddler. So cute.
But had also
Even though
made
he's
an
a
important
monster.
decision watching that all play out. She needed to help Alcaya let go of whatever secret she was hiding. It seemed to involve sisters and overseers and maybe Ares somehow, or maybe she had multiple secrets. Whatever it was clearly weighing on Alcaya and influencing her demeanor and maybe even her decisions. It wasn't Kiko's place to force someone to tell her anything, but in this case there was a bigger risk. If Ludum knew about this secret and intended to exploit it as a weakness on Alcaya...
Actually, that secret is the very reason she was even at the LAF Foundation.
Then it could even end up affecting all the Mavericks when it came time to enact their plan. Kiko decided to do something she hated doing and confront Alcaya about it, but in as calm and kind a way as she could. If it were a big enough secret, Alcaya could be very hesitant to reveal it. With that in mind, Kiko figured, maybe Alcaya would be more willing to open up if Kiko revealed her own secret first.
Oh, here we go. Oh, damn it, that means we're gonna have to wait until next part. Oh, damn it. Okay. Hey, look! A blue variant! Now he's Stitch!
If you enjoyed this and you haven't watched the whole Trismegistus Academy series, you might want to go back to the beginning and watch it. Because even though I avoided it in the first couple episodes, now I've worked in lots of different cool pop culture adaptations into this series. Or if you just want more Lilo and Stitch cousins, you could check out the episodes where I turn them into SCPs. Which, by the way, there will be another SCPs episode coming out on Monday. Just a classic Dresden narrated SCPs episode. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course we're ending this video on some kind of positive and inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is something I talked about in my recent episode on erasing creative block and getting rid of writer's block forever, and how I managed to do that a while back. But I thought about it again today because I was reminded how much easier it is to motivate yourself to work on something, whether art or writing or whatever, when you're actively trying to practice some new skill within that thing. Like this, doing the art for this felt especially fun because I was experimenting with trying to do more exaggeration in my art. So if you've been having any kind of writing or creative block, try and think of what new thing you could try and learn and experiment with on top of just, doing the thing that you love. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.
Alright everyone, well that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. A link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Until then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.